What is good, all you lovely homies out there in the world of the internet? We are back once again to fire up that old virtual co-op couch. Let's dust it off, make sure there's some space. Come, join us, won't you, while we sit down on said couch and talk about things we love, like video games. Because we are, of course, your split screen cynics, and we're here to talk about video games. We're here to talk about video game news. We're here to talk about video games we're playing. And also take some tangents along the way, which we haven't done recently. I feel like we've been good about that, but you know what?
I mean, if you consider the PAX East episode,
That was like a huge tangent. That was like a Boston
tangents.
tangent. But tangents are fun because in video games, if you stay on the critical path, you miss a whole bunch of cool shit by taking tangents. So if we happen to go down a tangent and go down a rabbit hole, let's see where it takes us. Maybe we'll find a cool item,
and maybe you'll never finish the main story.
and we'll never finish the main story because we're going to constantly get quests along the way. Garrett, happy belated birthday, by the way.
Oh, thank you. I'm old now, or whatever. Although Tim was old in another one, so I guess he beat me too.
I have been old.
Yeah. So now I'm in your guys' club. We're all old.
We're all
officially
old. We're all old and sitting on our couch and still playing video games. We're man children.
There's nothing. One of my good friends got me a card, and it was like, "You're turning 13," which was funny because it was like, "Are you responsible? Are you like hardworking?" It's like, maybe. I was like, "Oh, this is very appropriate for me."
Sort of, yes-ish.
But it said I was cool on the inside, so that's all that matters.
That is dope. Again, happy belated birthday once again. Welcome to the old club. And rounding out our trio, Tim, who's also a super cool dude. Tim is the third member of the Synics and also third member of the old club, apparently, which is a thing now. Tim, how are you?
I'm good. I'm old as well. I'm enjoying my retirement. And, I'm reaping the benefits of my 401k that I carefully cultivated over the course of my life.
That's awesome. I don't even know what those are.
401k? Do our generations have 401ks?
Mine did.
I. Well, oh, sorry.
That's right. The greatest generation. That's right. Actually, I'm being completely facetious. I also do have a 401k. It was just given to me and thrust upon me when I started working.
That sounds good, though. I have a drawer full of singles from bartending. That's my
right.
My 401k.
Yeah, $401.
Yeah, $401.
I have $401. That's my retirement plan. Thank you once again for joining us. Like I said, we're the Split Screen Cynics, and you can find us pretty much on every podcasting outlet out there. Get us on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher.
Now on YouTube. YouTube.
That's right. We're also on YouTube. So you guys want to go and hit that bell, the subscribe button, and all that stuff them kids are saying about the social medias and the internets and the Twitters. Do all that stuff. Give us a comment. 5 stars, please. We love 5 stars. You know what? Interact with us. Just something. Give us anything. We still don't have...
Let us know you exist, please.
Do we have a comment in 2019? I don't think we have.
It's the field is wide open.
Yeah. Comment of the year. You guys want that cookie?
And competition is fierce.
And I promise I won't eat them because we were supposed to give away cookies at PAX East if anyone came up and like fist bumped us or gave us a high five. But I ate the cookies. So.
Highlanders, they didn't make it. That's fine.
No, they didn't. Stick of butter in each one of those cookies. The reason why they're so good. Anyway, I was already starting us off on a tangent about cookies, so let's bring it back to video games. Let's talk about what we've been playing. So, Garrett, why don't you hit me up with what you've been playing, dude?
A whole bunch. And thank you for the intro. Anthem, definitely. We've all been playing Anthem. We're going to talk about it in a little bit. Interestingly enough, like kind of tag teaming with Anthem, I've been playing Division 2, which is a different sort of looter shooter, which you will find out how that got interesting later, because it's just better than Anthem, but we'll talk about it.
How you really feel.
Yeah, no, we'll get there. Yoshi's Crafted World I picked up. I've been playing that with my wife. It's actually, I don't know how I feel about it. Those games are so much fun to play co-op. But they're sort of really easy. I know I think they're sort of made for family fun /children /whatever. which they're good at. But there's one insanely fundamental issue with it, which is that if you jump anywhere near the other player, you jump on their back and interrupt whatever they were doing. Depending on how you look at it, maybe that's fun, maybe it's not. But like if I'm shooting an egg and Kristen jumps on my back, it cancels the egg shoot. So it's just like I feel like they could have just put a button press, like jump near the person and hold a button or something. But yeah, I don't know. We've been playing through that. It's also a weird game where it's got a lot of puzzles and sort of exploration, but it sort of just forces you to replay levels a lot. Like one of the key things in the game is you can replay a level and look for Poochie Pups.
Ooh, I like Poochie.
Yeah, which you like. The idea is to do it fast, right? So you sort of speed run, I guess. But the levels flipped around, so you see all the crafts from the back, and they're all duct taped and glued together.
That's kind of a cool. That's kind of a cool idea.
It's a cool concept, but it's really just like you unlock it after you play the level the first time, and you're sort of like, oh, like I just played that level. So playing it in reverse at speed is like not that much fun, weirdly enough. And then also there's like, there's this guy who will tell you like, oh, collect these items through the level, but they tell you that after you play the level. So
you got to go back in and like play it again.
It seems like it's just being like, hey, play the levels a lot, and it's kind of like, but I don't wanna. Either way, it's a lot of fun to play co-op. I don't know if I want to give that like a thumbs up. You should definitely play it. Definitely not solo because it's really easy and boring if you do. I have been playing more Sekiro. You guys kind of know my take on that. You guys kind of played a little bit at my house, which was cool. I'm excited for that game. I will actually stream it tonight. I know I was supposed to yesterday, but I fell asleep. Last game I played, Sea of Thieves. Xbox Game Pass is $1 for 3 months right now. Monster Hunter World's coming out for it, so I figure why not. But I was playing Sea of Thieves with like a full crew. It was like Billy, Andrew, Joe. We were all playing together. It's kind of fun and goofy as a crew.
Did you guys like get drunk and throw up on each other?
I got hammered because that was new for me. I guess they had done that before. It's funny because the game has a lot of like charm to it. Because like I'm this big fat pirate with no shirt, and like everyone thinks that's funny that I like. Everyone else is like a normal kind of. They're doing a pirate thing. I'm like the big fat pirate.
And you're like, no, I gotta be the fat pirate.
Yeah. And like I'm always playing music and stuff. Like I enjoy that part of the game. The quests themselves are kind of like a little lackluster. You just go to an island and it's like figure out the riddle, and it's like buried treasure 7 steps from a rock or something. The main issue I saw, and this is a like year in updated game, content sort of seems sparse because you just kind of do that on repeat. Like I feel like I've already seen most of the content in the game on a few hours of play, and the PvP is also miserably set up. It's fun at first glance because you're like, oh, we're fighting a pirate ship and man the cannons and stuff. But the PvP was literally like there was 2 dudes in a small boat. One dude would cannon himself over to our boat and try to kill us. And there was no issue. Like, if we killed him, he would just respawn on his boat. So it was sort of like, so long as he had a guy running away. I know, like, had we been better at the game and sunk their ship, I believe if you actually sink the ship, it kind of, like, diffuses that situation. But, like, that guy just kept doing that until we sort of gave up. I don't know. It seemed weird. It seems like a fun idea that just wasn't fleshed out enough, so. I don't know. I don't know if we're gonna keep playing that game. Hopefully, Monster Hunter will replace
it. Yeah, you should try Atlas. I heard that's good.
Atlas is the the Ark like sequel, right, or something?
Yeah, I mean it's the extension of it's Sea of Thieves, but just improved in every way.
Is it actually better though? Because wasn't
apparently it's really bad, but it's
okay.
I think it's early access. That doesn't give it an excuse.
Yeah,
but
that deadpan got me. I was like, wait, is it actually better? I thought
like,
it was
no, it's terrible. Don't play it.
I did see it was patched recently, but I saw clips of it. It looks terrible. Like the graphics are miserable. It looks like it was made in like 2006.
I think the issue nowadays is a lot of games. It's like they come out with this concept and they release the game before actually building a true video game out of it, which Sea of Thieves definitely did. The fact that it's a year in and it's like I played for a few hours and I'm like, okay, I'm done. Like, is an issue. I think
I did all the drinking. I sang all the songs. I'm good.
Yeah. I mean, I could continue to do that and purchase like nicer peg legs. Basically, it's just my option.
Oh, I mean, there's a carrot at the end of the stick. You get nice peg legs.
Yeah. I guess.
I would take
don't know.
peg legs and Anthem, but we'll get to that.
We'll get to it. Tim, what have you been playing?
I've been playing some Risk of Rain 2. I'm enjoying it. It's also an early access game, but for an early access game, it's got like enough to keep you playing for a little while at least. It's basically it's a third person shooter roguelike with co-op. I've only played it with co-op. I think it would be okay in single player, but it seems like it's designed for co-op. And it's just like pretty fast paced. You just get dropped in these levels and you have to like fight your way through. You know spend money to get like upgrades for the run, and then you try to find the exit and fight a boss, and then you move on to the next level. And it's all about like speed, because the longer the game goes, the harder all the enemies get. So it's just like you're trying to do everything as quickly as possible and
Can
as far
I
as the game.
ask, like, so knowing me, like, should I get that game in early access, or do you think it's worth it to wait for the
Or
full
like
release?
wait for the full release.
I mean,
I would love
I'm
to
sure
like, play that game, but
I'm sure like waiting for the full game, it's going to be a better product when it fully comes out. And it does seem like this, it doesn't seem like there's a lot of end game. It's a roguelike, so it's different. I don't think there's like a completing the game at least yet. It's just kind of how far can you get.
sure.
But I mean, I've played about like 8 or so hours of it, and I'm still enjoying it a lot. So I think it's $20.
Maybe I'll pick it up. I just I worry that. Well, first of all, I worry because the first game I picked up and it was like for some reason it was broken. I know we talked about that. But I just worry like if I wait for the full release, you'll be burnt out on it. And I'll have no one to play.
And then there goes your pool of players.
Do you think that fans of the first one will like it just as well?
I mean, I honestly, my memory of the first one's next to none. Like we played it. I mean, I only played it the one time with you, Garrett, before we gave up on it because it broke your computer. But I just remember running around in co-op and having like roguelike elements. I've heard some of the people I play with have played the first one and they make comparisons to the first one, but I can't really say any more than that. I didn't get the full experience from the first one, so I can't judge.
Got it. You been playing anything else, Tim?
Next season of Counter-Strike starting soon, so I've been grinding away at that.
Oh man!
Oh yeah. By the way, how'd you guys do at that playoff match?
We got destroyed.
Oh nice.
like I thought, but
it's experience. It's experience.
It's in the past now.
Berto, what have you been playing?
Just been playing Anthem. I really haven't been playing a lot these past 2 weeks. Mostly just wanted to get in as much Anthem and get as much of the end game in as possible. As we finally finished the story, I wanted to see just what was out there and available, or lack thereof, as far as the end game. And also, I just didn't have a lot of time because what they don't tell you when you get old and be an adult, and you want to start like buying stuff like property, maybe, that it's a very time-consuming process. So that's been sucking up a lot of my free time, like talking to lawyers and real estate people. I'm like, I'd rather be playing video games. Don't they have a video game about buying stuff? Can I just do that instead and have like the co-op come through the video game?
Hopefully Moving Out comes out soon and then
you'll
practice.
I am so I'm going to just like, Garrett, I need you to throw boxes out the window. Garrett's just going to be over here just chucking them.
No aim, just straight out the window.
I am just going to run through my door and just break it and just throw boxes outside, and hopefully someone catches them.
Well, hopefully everything goes okay and you end up closer to us and we can hang out more. I actually had a lot of fun for you listeners. We actually kind of like did a mini hangout and played some video games for the first time in a while, I would say.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I'm confident that it's going to come through. It seems like all signs are pointing positive. It's just very time-consuming process, and because of that, I just haven't had much gaming time. But fear not, soon we will all be furniture arrangement relocation technicians, and I will use all your farts to help me move out.
There you go. As long as there's pizza and beer, then
there will be pizza and beer for all farts who are helping.
Speaking of playing video games in my house, you guys picked up Sekiro like way faster than I did. I don't know if that was because I was given some tips or anything, but like you guys were parrying and shit, and I was like, man, I wasn't doing that for like 2 hours.
No, it definitely the tips helped, and I think at that point there's already been enough discourse around Sekiro where, you kind of have a feel for, I guess, once you get the controls figured out, like the whole parrying and posture, and like it's already been talked about, so it wasn't like a completely new experience for me.
Yeah,
I was just button mashing, so
I mean that's sometimes that game feels button mashy. Honestly, that you were parrying the dogs, Berto, I was like, the dogs were a nightmare for me anytime I would come across them. And then you were parrying them. I was like, oh, I didn't know you could parry the dogs.
Oh, I was
thought
like,
it was like a weapon.
I'm like, I want to
thing.
parry everything. No one's gonna touch me.
There was one boss or a mini boss. I don't know. I guess it's mini boss. It was this big bowl with like flaming horn things. And I remember like playing it and be like, can I parry him? And I was like parrying. I was like, wait, what? Like big, huge charges.
I'm going to parry the shit out of every boss because I'm totally buying that game.
Oh, bueno. Well, speaking of buying games, let's talk about this.
Oh, Garrett, I love your transitions.
I'm gonna kick it to you, Berto. Sorry.
That's all good. That was you know what? I love the enthusiasm and I love the segue. So going off the back of that with buying games, let's take it to our second segment, which is what we like to call a cynical spin. Very light on the news. There really wasn't much to talk about. I only kept it at 2 news items this week because the second news item I'm hoping it generates more discussion because it's a very meaty topic. The first one I just threw on there because I'm a big fanboy, and also I wanted to get your guys' take on this. But Star Wars Celebration happened this past weekend in Chicago, and they announced a whole bunch of shit. Star Wars Episode 9, they showed the first trailer, which I am back on board. I was running hot and cold with The Last Jedi.
Yeah, I feel like your opinion on The Last Jedi is pretty low.
I was like, it was very divisive, and I was like, I don't know how I feel about it. I didn't universally love it, but I didn't quite hate it either. I was kind of stuck in the middle. So when I saw the trailer for Episode 9, back on board. But in addition to that, and like all the movies and TV shows they're planning, they gave us our first trailer look at the Respawn title, Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. You play as Cal Kestis, who's a Padawan who happened to escape Palpatine's Order 66 at the end of Revenge of the Sith. So the game is set between Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope. And you're basically like just trying to lie low and survive. The name of the game is Don't Stand Out because they're hunting any remaining Jedis to kill them. So you kind of got to like survive within your means and not stand out while trying to finish your training at the same time. So that seems like a really cool concept where it's like you want to survive, you got to stay hidden. Don't make any waves. Don't let anyone know that you're around or that, let alone that you're a Jedi. And also a story first, single player, narrative driven game. No multiplayer, no microtransactions. And Respawn definitely came out of the gate and said, "Listen, guys, no microtransactions whatsoever."
That's become such a thing now. It's like, oh, we're making a single player game without microtransactions, and everyone's like, oh, like okay,
yeah. That was the response. People were like, "Why are you saying
that's
this?"
Cool. It's because EA.
One of the things.
It's because of EA.
Because they're like, it's EA. Like, we want to get out ahead of this and just let you know the last EA game, microtransactions, Battlefront, not a good thing. There's none of that here.
So, Bert, so specifically, I wanted to ask you because I would guess that you're probably the biggest Star Wars fan out of the 3 of us. Mm-hmm. Does that sound accurate, Tim? I don't know.
Yeah.
Are you, unless you're secretly like a huge Star Wars fan?
I abandoned the Star Wars franchise like
I figured
several movies ago.
All right, fair. I'm somewhat of a casual fan of Star Wars, where I just sort of like certain ones, not for any particular reason. Mm-hmm. As a pretty big Star Wars fan, like, what are your hopes for this game as far as like, what are you expecting, gameplay wise, like style? Like, are you thinking it's gonna be like a stealth game because he's kind of trying to keep to the shadows? Do you think it's going to be something like KOTOR, where it's like a full-on open world RPG? Like, what are your hopes for it?
I'm hoping that they really lean into the stealth element. In addition to in the gameplay, they showed a whole bunch of Well, it wasn't gameplay; it was just a trailer. They actually haven't shown any gameplay footage yet, so we
I'm
don't
gonna
know what the
mention
game's
that in
going
a
to play
bit.
like. They, but they introduced like a couple of the antagonists that are going to be chasing you, and they're essentially like elite Jedi hunter squads. Which my guess is they're going to be like pretty much chasing you the entire time. So I want them to really lean into that stealth aspect. I kind of want a combination of like a stealth game and like the Force Unleashed.
Okay, so a
So
lot of
where you
force
get like
powers and stuff. I
exploring your
mean,
Jedi powers, but at the same time you kind of got to be like, oh, maybe don't use my Jedi powers in that like crowded market area because I'm going to draw attention to myself.
yeah, from the trailer, it looked like I was getting some Force Unleashed vibes. Now, the other part of my argument is let's all hold our horses because there was no gameplay footage shown whatsoever.
That's the other thing.
So I know you're excited, Berto. I know some Star Wars fans are excited. Please don't get excited. It's AEA. That was confusing. But B, no gameplay footage shown. Like, as we are going to talk about with Anthem. Like, let's not.
Yes, no,
let's
that
not
definitely
trust
tempering.
trailers.
I'm definitely tempering my expectations because there was also that where the trailer looked amazing, and then what you get was maybe not close to what you first were sold.
But I could see it's a cool take. I was getting the vibe from the trailer, like beginning of the game's kind of like a little more stealth, a little more like you're super vulnerable, and then I imagine halfway through the game you kind of become like a badass and you just start going crazy, Force Unleashed style. Although I don't know, like I think it looks sort of like actiony. I'm not getting like a big RPG vibe out of it. I'm sure there will be elements, but
I imagine it's going to be something similar to maybe like the God of War from Cory Barlog's God of War for the PS4, where it does have maybe some RPG-ish elements from like building up your character, but it's mainly going to be sort of an action-oriented game.
Yeah, could be cool. I know that's big for Star Wars fans because there's been a bit of a drought game-wise. I like, what is it? Battlefront 2 was probably the actual last Star Wars.
And even that, and
that's been a very rocky road.
I've been starving for a good Star Wars game, and EA's like, we need to get a good Star Wars game because we're like totally mishandling the license. Yeah. We need a win in this one. So
Respawn Entertainment, what do you know what they've done offhand? I can't think.
Titanfall,
Titanfall, Apex, got it, all that stuff. Okay. Yeah. So they're pretty competent.
Yeah, no, so like a legit studio. It's not just like any no-name studio that this is like the first time they're making a big title. Like this is a studio that has quality titles under their belt. Hopefully at E3 we maybe get some kind of gameplay trailer. That would be nice.
Wait, it's supposed to? Didn't they announce it's like November or something?
Yeah. So it's like it's this year, November 15th. Let me take November 15th of this year. So we have to be getting some kind of gameplay footage at E3.
It only makes sense.
At that point, you're like 5 months out from release.
Time's ticking. Yeah. That's honestly kind of a good thing, though. I like that. It's funny because the Star Wars movie, I feel like they also announced close to the release, which is, I always think, nice. Like the closer to release you announce things, the better.
Well, especially for movies, because then there's no, like, you don't get these trailers that give away the entire movie.
Yeah, and you're not just waiting for like a year and a half to be like, oh man, I'm so excited. That tangent, I don't know if you guys are Game of Thrones fans. I know you are, Berto. Tim, not so much?
No.
All right, Tim's out.
But I know exactly where you're going with that whole waiting a year and a half.
Wait almost 2 years, and then here's the first episode. It's not the best. I won't spoil anything for those who haven't seen it.
It's giving exposition. It's setting up the backstory. We haven't seen these people in like 2 years. We got to refresh our memory.
We need intro to an 8-year-long series we've been watching.
And what do you say we talk about Sekiro for our second news story?
Sure.
I'm still working on these segues. I'm not very good with transitioning.
It's some hard segues this week, to be honest.
Yeah, it's like pivoting. We went from dragons to Sekiro.
Game of Thrones got thrown in there. Sorry. I don't know why I did that.
It's fine. That's totally on brand. But yes, so there's been a bunch of discussion around Sekiro recently. And it's pretty much sort of the same discussions that come around anytime a From Software game is talked about, in that they're looking at the game as not very accessible to everyone. So there was this big conversation around the accessibility of Sekiro, and anytime anyone mentions anything like that, the internet goes like all up in arms, and they're like, "Well, just get good and play the game better." I don't know if you guys had a chance to like read any of the articles or see any of the discussion going around. Um, but really, long story short, I just wanted to get like a little bit of a discussion going on to see what your take is on the whole accessibility issue. I know you guys are both big From Software fans, the Souls and the Bloodborne game. What's your take on it being such big fans on that aspect? And
So before even takes and stuff, I just I think part of the reason this blew up also, there was like a meme that happened. Some guy, I forget who it was. I think it was don't quote me on this. I think it was a game journalist or something like that. Posted on Twitter that he beat Sekiro using a cheat engine and was like, "Oh, I finally beat it, and I needed to use cheats." Like, and I was satisfied with the game. And some guy responded in like a super. I don't know if it was satire or not, but like, "Oh, you haven't earned any, experience, knowledge, or pleasure from this. Like you've dishonored not only yourself but
that's
this."
right. I have seen a bunch of those memes. Yeah.
So that turned into a meme, and that I think that's
Yeah.
kind of what blew this argument up a little bit and made it a little more goofy. I did originally read some articles on various this and that. But Tim, I kind of want to kick it to you first because I know you are maybe the biggest fan of these games. You might even beat me. I'm not sure.
I mean, I am a fan of cheat engines.
Oh yeah.
I think this is real. No, I mean, this has been going on for a long time. I mean, it ties in with games journalism, especially. I think the other recent one that was really big was the Cuphead thing.
Oh yeah, the Cuphead.
I know
intro
there was
level.
one for Doom 2016.
Oh yeah, the
where
Doom.
It's like
There's
it's
so much.
basically some journalist like presents a piece, whatever it is, whether it be a video or a tweet in this case, and they just basically expose themselves at being, I guess, incapable of playing the game to its required level, whether it be just to pass the tutorial or shoot some zombies or, I guess in this case, beat Sekiro. And it just opens up this question of like, should you be covering this game if you're not able to complete it, or if you don't have the gaming dexterity to be able to do it, which I guess opens it up even more into kind of like, is it fair for games to be inaccessible to certain types of players? Like, should any person be able to experience the full game of Sekiro, whether or not they're capable of beating it? And it's honestly, it's everyone's gonna have their own opinion on it. We grew up on games that were really unforgiving, and just, being able to get access to the content itself was like, the goal. Just being like, okay, I'm gonna grind away at this game, after school every day, and hopefully in a month I'll be able to make it to the final boss or something like that. Like, that is what gaming is for me. And I feel like, especially in modern society where, everyone has a Twitch, everyone has a YouTube, you can look up all the content you want. If you don't want to play the game, that's fine. And, I guess this one's a bit of a gray area because I'm sure the journalist made it to a certain point in the game and was like, I'm stuck. But they wanted to, I guess, experience the rest of it. But it's almost kind of like they were fishing for somebody to say something goofy and, I guess something to make a meme out of in this specific instance. But personally, if it's okay if a game's too hard. You can, if you really want to experience it, just look it up. But I do kind of agree that if you're a game journalist, you shouldn't be covering a game that you're not capable of progressing in.
And it's interesting because the way you were talking about how it evolves into different kind of arguments. Because like I think the initial argument was sort of like, these games maybe should have an easy mode, if I'm not mistaken. Like I think that was kind of the original idea. And yes, it is mostly games journalists, and like I kind of get that sentiment a little bit because it's like, okay, if it's your job to review a video game and it's too difficult for you to beat, like that's an issue for you personally in your job or whatever. I do find it weird though, especially because I know Miyazaki has said, not necessarily about Sekiro, I think it was about Bloodborne, I'm not sure which game, but he basically said like the game is difficult because he wants it to be this experience of overcoming obstacles and getting better and growing as a player, to a point where literally in the Dark Souls lore in the universe, it's sort of written in that like the idea is that as you die, you get better. And if you give up, you go hollow. Like it's like a fourth wall break kind of a thing there. It's a weird thing because Tim and I kind of briefly talked about this the other day. And I was like, okay, let me play devil's advocate and like put the shoe on the other foot or whatever. Because I play games like Ni no Kuni 2 or Yoshi's Crafted World. And I'm like, okay, these games are too easy. And like, it's weird because it would be me demanding a hard mode for those games. You know what I mean? Like, if I want to enjoy the games, like, give me a hard mode. And for me personally, it's just sort of a thing where it's like, maybe that game's not for me. I do know the other argument is like an accessibility argument. There was a journalist who had a repeated stress injury or whatever, and was kind of saying like, games that require too many button presses too fast or so on and so forth. Like basically it causes him pain. There was a response to either that journalist or another one where it was a guy who I believe he was like somewhat paralyzed and he had, his hands were kind of screwed up, his use of his hands, and he posted himself beating the final boss of Sekiro. So like, it's such a hard discussion because like,
I have no sympathy for anybody who says that they have like a stress injury from playing video games that prevents them from being able to play video games.
Yeah, that's a little too much.
I don't buy it, and if it's that bad, there are clearly other ways around it.
Yeah, and there are tons. There's famous streamers. I follow one who are basically like disabled in some way, shape, or form that play high level games in PvP against other people and win games of Fortnite.
One of the Smite organizations I was a part of had one of their streamers was blind, and he would play he would play fighting games, and he would play. Apparently he played Smite. I never played with him, but just imagining that, like, you have no excuse.
That's insane.
This is your job.
Yeah.
Like,
so the whole accessibility for like disabled gamers, I think, was stretching it too much. I think that was like kind of trying to make something out of nothing. The easy mode thing, like I kind of agree with Tim. Like if you really want to experience a game that's too hard for you, you can watch Twitch videos. You can, you can watch YouTube videos. You can look up kind of walkthroughs. Like to me, walkthroughs was always easy mode for games. Like I've kind of stayed away from them since I think I had Mario 64 way back in the day. But like that was the easy mode back in the day, because Tim's right. If you wanted to beat Mega Man 2, you just had to beat it. Like there wasn't like a YouTube channel or Twitch channel you could watch. So
all right, here's my counter argument to all of that, because I totally respect the point you guys are bringing up. When we played Celeste for our game club, Celeste has an assist mode. Did having the assist mode in the game change in any way how we played the game?
I would say not at all.
And that's an example of how the developers put something in the game to make it accessible to other players who didn't maybe want the difficulty that we were playing it with, because we enjoyed, the aspect of trying to get through a level and figuring out the jumps you got to make and, playing the game how it was designed to be played. But then for other players who were like, you know what, we'll give you like infinite jumps because maybe you want to experience the story of Celeste that the game is telling, but you don't want the difficulty challenge. It didn't change the way we played the game because we didn't select it. We didn't even know it was like, I didn't even know about the accessibility mode until after the fact.
So that doesn't bother me at all. The guy beating the game with a cheat engine doesn't actually bother me at all. Like if that's how you want to play the game, you can. My issue is that like it does seem like a lot of people are like, okay, why isn't there an easy mode in this game from software? And like, I don't think it should be up to the developers to like put in an easy mode.
Maybe it's not an easy mode. I don't think it needs an easy mode, but maybe make it so that I know I like I've read a number of pieces where they were like, maybe make your game more accessible by doing a mode where you have like infinite posture, or it's easier to break the enemy's posture.
Yeah,
so that it's not necessarily easy, but for the people who maybe don't want that experience of banging your head against the wall until you figure it out, they're like, listen, I want to play the game. It looks gorgeous. I want to see the story that Sekiro has to tell, but maybe just throw me a bone because I don't know, maybe the button presses or what have you, whatever the poison that they're serving that you don't want to deal with, give them a mode where it gets rid of that. And it's something that you have to like opt into because you don't automatically select it, or you put it behind a menu somewhere so that you actually have to go to look for this so that you can make the game that much more accessible, so that if
And to
you know
be fair,
anybody else
cheat
wants to play
engines
it.
are generally PC only. I don't think you can actually
Yeah,
get those on
so for
console.
the people
So
who want to play the game as it was meant to be played, great. You just start it up, hit start, you jump right in. But if you want maybe a little bit more of a laid back experience, you go and dig through the menu until you find those toggles. Maybe you switch the switch the reaction time, make enemies maybe like a fraction slower than they are, or whatever the accessibility options would be.
I mean, my disagreement with that, I guess, is just based on it's a couple factors. I guess for one, like it would have to, you have to look at this in a nutshell. Like, what exactly would they do to Sekiro to make it more accessible? Like, they would have to figure out ways to do it. It could be something like posture, it could be health, it could be all these things. But if you're the developer of Sekiro and you have this exact vision of how you want the players to feel in these certain scenarios, you're gonna have to try and like curtail the entire experience around that, and it's not necessarily gonna work if there are all these other things. And all the time that you put into figuring out ways to make it all work is less room for more content that you would want elsewhere in the game. The other idea I had, and I brought this up the other day, is that we kind of view games as an art form, and when you look at any piece of art from a writer perspective, they're trying to factor in the experience for the reader or the viewer or the player in this case. And it would be like having cliff notes in like the borders of all of the books you're reading, because like the symbolism is too hard to, I guess, understand for somebody, or just having like a voiceover in a movie just saying like, oh, and this is what's being implied here. I think that is somewhat relatable to video games, because the challenge is, it has to do with your ability to play the game.
Oh,
I don't want to sound like super elitist and be like, you shouldn't be allowed to play this game unless you're
no, and that's why I wanted to have this conversation. I wanted to get like both sides of the argument, because it seems like between the three of us, we have very different viewpoints on this. And again, it isn't to say that we're not saying like games should be like, if you can't play it, that's it. You shouldn't be playing games, period. Like that, we don't want to gatekeep games, but I definitely wanted to get the sort of the round table view of where we're all coming from this.
Can I ask quickly on both sides, Tim, are you opposed to having, like for Celeste, for instance, did that bother you that there was an assist mode in the game at all?
No, and I don't think that for a game like Celeste, it really, like, I think it's hard because the gameplay is really well made, and it's based around challenge and overcoming difficulties and things. But I just honestly don't think the experience would be as good for somebody just playing it on the assist mode.
Sure, but just like without the whole etc. argument, like specifically having an easy mode in a game doesn't quite bother you.
No,
okay,
it does.
That's interesting, because I don't think it bothers me either. And then Berto, like, do you? So I'm just trying to get everybody's opinion on like the kind of fringe things here. Does it bother you that like if Miyazaki was to say like, listen, I'm not putting in sort of accessibility options, but like there are cheat engines out there that you could use, or feel free to like look at a YouTube. Like, do you think that's fair for someone like him to possibly say in response to this argument?
No, it's fine, and listen. The game's it's his work, it's his creative vision. If he wants to take that stance, he can totally do that. But I mean, also acknowledge the fact that by doing that, maybe there are some players that you're turning away because some players who would want to play your game, but because of the lack of accessibility options, for whatever reasons they may need them or want them, now they can't experience the game.
Interesting. I find it's funny because like I started this conversation way different than I'm at now, where I'm like, I'm sort of, you're right. Like the assist mode in Celeste didn't bother me one bit. I saw it. I was like, oh, that's weird. Like completely ignored it. And seeing it's funny because seeing an assist mode in Sekiro, I might've been like, well, that's weird. Like, just because the From games, like I kind of understand what they're about.
Right, and again, Sekiro is probably like, I don't want to say it's a bad example of this because it comes from a studio that has this already. It's sort of built upon, it has this reputation of being very challenging and very tough games. And this is pretty much the same argument that's like anytime a new Souls games comes out, people are always talking about the difficulty and this. So it's kind of like rehashing the same thing. I mean, the games as art perspective, I know there's a number of arguments for like, oh, you wouldn't want to compromise a piece of art by, writing on the edges of the book because you couldn't understand or because you didn't get the symbology.
I'll take
I
symbology.
I think it's symbolism. In Tim's example, I mean, I think the difference between video games and classical, if you want to call them classical works of art, is that video games are interactive. You interact with them in a very different way than you do with like a book or
Sure.
experiencing like a painting or a sculpture.
And to be fair, the like experiencing a video game via YouTube video may not be the same as experiencing a video game on an easier setting, for instance.
Right. And I mean, I'm just of the school of thought where even if you bury these options within like sub menus where you don't see it up front and you have to, like I said, opt in to find them, I don't think it changes the way the game is played. The majority of us are going to play it the way we want to play it, and I think we'll still get the message across. And if you play it the way it was designed to be played, you still get that feeling of accomplishment. And hey, if you play it with like infinite posture, you still feel accomplished because you were still able to experience the game and play it maybe your way, but you still got out of it what you're going to get out of it.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that point. Like, I have no issue with things being included. I think my issue lies in the idea that things have to be included. And I that's sort of my final stance is sort of like, I don't mind if there are easy or hard modes, but I don't think that developers should be forced to put them in, because as Tim said, like, that can eat into development time. And I think it's unfair for people to expect that, especially when there are, and I know it's kind of a PC thing. People have mods. You can always mod a game. I know that's not quite as much on console. But to me, it's like, okay, like, so lookup strategies, use a walkthrough. Like, I do think there's a lot more avenues to make a game easier. Similar to, like, in Ni no Kuni 2, I tried to underlevel myself to make it harder. Like, I wasn't demanding a hard mode. I was like, you know what? Let me try to make it harder so I can enjoy the game more. So
here's what I'll say to that as my final point is, did that work for you though when you tried to make it hard?
Well, Ni no Kuni 2 is unfortunately like miserably.
This is my point is, like, it's going to sound elitist, but like, I don't think every game should be designed for everybody. I think you are always going to gravitate to your types of games. Like, certain games are going to get really popular and everyone's going to want to try and play them, but it might not be for you, and I think that's okay. And it just, when you bring difficulty into it, it sounds more elitist, but I just think that, there are plenty of games with similar themes to Sekiro or the Souls games, which with much more accessibility that aren't, I think that the Souls games are kind of focused around the, the learning curve and overcoming obstacles and things like that, where if you just had ways to blast through the game, it would just be cheapening the experience for yourself. And I know I'm starting to sound like the tweeter who responded to him.
Yeah.
But
that's a fair point. That is part of the reason why I love those games, is because they're hard.
I just don't think everything should be designed for everybody.
Yeah.
That's just my take.
And to be fair, Ni no Kuni 2 was not designed for me because I gave up on it, even though I loved the first game.
The last point I'll make on this, and then we can close the argument and then head into our third segment, is I agree with Tim in that not every game is for everyone. There are definitely games where you play them and you're like, this is not a game for me. It's not my cup of tea. It's not up my alley. I want to be able to make that decision myself after playing the game. I don't want that decision to be made for me because the game is inaccessible to me. So I agree with the point that not every game is for everyone. And maybe I don't like games like Stardew Valley, those sim games, not my cup of tea. But it's not because it's not because they're not available to me. It's because they're inaccessible to me. I tried them. I think they're boring as shit. I don't want to do work when I'm escaping work. That's just my take. It's not a game for me. If I play Sekiro, I want to be able to play it and experience it and say, you know what, not my jam. But if I'm not even able to get to that starting point to make that decision, then I feel like I'm being cheated.
It is interesting just because it does seem specifically that this conversation comes up from games, being not really Demon Souls.
Right, and that's why I was like, this is like sort of this, it's just because it feels like this always comes up.
Because I'm like, I'm running through like things, there's so many shoot 'em ups out there that are so insanely hard that you don't really hear this about because they're kind of niche games.
Just because they're popular. and they're known with this kind of like, oh, like you have to get good in order to play them. Like you said, in the grand scheme of games, like they're just challenging games. They're not like
Yeah.
brutally difficult
They're
games.
not
They're just
even
popular.
like the
That's really what it comes
hardest
down
because
to.
there's like it's funny because something like although I guess there's easy modes in StarCraft and stuff. Like StarCraft to me is way harder. But if you play on easy mode, it's not that hard, I guess. So I don't know. This is a tough one.
I mean, and listen, it was a great discussion. It was.
What do you listeners think? Get at us. Let us know.
Yeah, get at us. Let us know what you guys think. We want to hear from you, listeners. Let us know. And again, we love games. Everyone should play games. This isn't us trying to like gatekeep games or anything. So
even if you hate hard
everyone.
games, give Sekiro a try. It's a phenomenally crafted game.
It is a beautiful game, and you
if
get a
you
cool
need to
which, for all intents and purposes,
get some cheat engines.
work.
Yeah.
Only comment if your comments are designed for me.
Oh, all right. That's that's fair. All I'm gonna say is I played. What is that called? Dance. What's that game that you and Allison have, Berta?
Just Dance.
Just Dance. Me and Andrew played Just Dance, and we tried Rasputin, which I thought was like the hardest thing. And that game is inaccessible to someone like me, being of my weight, stature, and athleticism.
You got to get low in that for Rasputin.
You got to touch the floor. You got to touch the floor. I can't believe we didn't talk about that in the PAX episode, by the way. Me and Andrew literally were in the basement at 5 a.m. playing that game via YouTube. Like I just played it and we tried to dance.
I gotta find. I gotta like fire it up and find that dance because now I want to do Rasputin.
Is way too difficult for me, but I tried it. I don't know. So maybe I don't know. Just try every game and see what happens. Who knows?
Yeah, games are fun, except Animal Crossing.
Speaking of trying games, don't try this one.
Oh, that was a
but
good
I'm mad about
segue.
Animal Crossings. So like I don't want to continue.
Yeah,
but...
you want to intro our third segment, Garrett?
Yeah, sure. Man, Animal Crossing, really? You have a Switch, dude. It's gonna be so much fun. Anthem, Game Club, number 3, 4? Something. It's one of them.
A Game Club.
Either way, our Game Club episodes basically, we told you about this a long time ago, and we forgot to tell you about the next game, but we could do that.
Yeah, we'll do it
we'll
do it.
We'll do it at the end, and I'll post on Instagram and stuff. Who cares? So we all played Anthem. I think we all gave it a good shot, as good a shot as you could give a game like that.
Seriously.
And this is one that hopefully, if you did play it, you can tune along. If not, maybe don't, because it's not too good. I think we can all agree on that. There was also the big whole article. Jason Schreier at Kotaku interviewed a bunch of employees and stuff. We kind of talked about that last episode, so we won't go into it too much. But basically, there was issues with the development of the game, whether it was management or time or EA Frostbite Engine, whatever you want to talk about. But essentially, the game was not developed the way it should have been, and it was released for the mass audience. So we all did play this game over, I think, like a month and a half. Actually, we had a good amount of time. I think we all at least ended the story and sort of hit end game content. And we all played on PC. We played together a little bit. For the most part, I think we played together. So let me just open the floor up. What were your guys' expectations going in? And how did that pan out for you?
Oof. My expectations were sky high when I saw, and again, this is what we mentioned before. Don't fall in love with trailers when you first see them unless you see gameplay. When they showed the first footage of the game, I'm like, Game of the Year 2019 contender. Off of that one trailer, I was ready.
Game,
like
dude,
I was
really?
ready to, I was ready to anoint this game a contender for Game of the Year 2019, sight unseen of any gameplay. A very, very different response from what my expectations were initially.
Tim, how about you, bud?
Well, I mean, I don't get excited for most games, unless it's like a specific series or developer that I'm a huge fan of. So I wasn't really excited about Anthem, and then when it came out, it was getting just the worst press ever, and I'm like, well, doesn't really surprise me. And when I played it, I had some fun with it, so I was pleasantly surprised with what I was playing. I see, I don't think that, I'm not saying the hate was not justified. There's definitely a lot of problems with the game, But if you go into it thinking it's just going to be a completely boring waste of time, there's fun to be had in it. It's just not a complete game. That's really what it comes down to.
Yeah, I personally, my expectations I think were exactly met. And it's funny, Berto, you bring up the E3 video where I saw the E3 video. And I was like, oh, that kind of looks boring, and I think I just had that in my head where it's like, this is an E3 video, like. Yeah. Like I wasn't too trustworthy of it.
Yeah,
but
you're a lot better about that than I am.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, that's where my cynicism comes in. I'm like E3, like I don't believe any of that. But I kind of agree with Tim. Like I was surprised how well the game sort of worked. From just like it was fun to fly around and shoot stuff. And I actually thought that was going to be really boring in and of itself. So I was kind of surprised in that way. I kind of knew going in, obviously we had heard some reviews and some news and stuff, that the game was somewhat unfinished, that there was issues along the way. It was kind of interesting because for listeners out there, we actually did play this game after some maybe 2 or 3 somewhat major patches, I want to say. The third one actually hitting while we were playing, which every patch has come with issues along the way, certainly. But yeah, it's weird. My expectations were exactly met. I don't think it helped Anthem that I was playing Division 2 at the same time. Division 2 is a much more complete, much more well-crafted version of a looter shooter, if you will, just in terms of item management and so on and so forth. And as I'm getting to that, I guess we could kind of start talking about like some big cons you guys noticed, some were there any pros you guys noticed? Me personally, I was actually surprised at how kind of into the story I was. Normally, I'm not the biggest Bioware fan. I've never actually really played through Knights of the Old Republic or Knights of the Old Republic 2. I don't know if both of those were Bioware or just the second one. I dabbled in Dragon Age, but I kind of hated 2 and 3. I've never played any of the Mass Effects, so I'm sort of missing out on a lot of Bioware games. So the little interactions around town and chatting with people, I was surprisingly into. And normally I have to really like a game to be into that kind of stuff. But I actually thought the characters were well crafted and like the little interactions were well crafted. I do think there was huge issues as far as like those interactions not seeming to do anything whatsoever. Although I did get a koi pond, and I was a big fan of the koi pond. But that it was then actually surprisingly I was interested in that part. I know, like Tim, you for instance, you were saying you just like were blowing through the dialogue, like you didn't seem to care. But
I'm a Philistine, so.
But and to be fair, like it wasn't worth anything at the end of the day. Like it just sort of fizzles out. But was there like, give me some pros and cons from you guys as far as like good things about the game, bad things about the game.
Well, let's just start with pros, because I mean,
sure, let's all do some pros. Yeah.
So okay, it really is fun to fly around. I will say that.
Definitely.
That was one of the fun when I saw the initial trailer and they showed the flying. I'm like, that looks really cool. It's like, this is like what Iron Man probably feels like. So it was really fun to actually just traverse the world that they created. And actually the world looks like maybe not as great as the trailer. They might have scaled back a little bit from the vertical slice they showed at the trailer. But it's still a very lovely looking world that they created. The flying felt amazing. Traversing felt really cool. And depending on your javelin, I know some javelins have a little bit harder time traveling around, like when you're the big honky. You're the big honky. Like I was the ranger javelin, so that's sort of like your all around class, not really good at any one thing, kind of mediocre at everything. Yeah, sometimes like you would overheat a little bit depending on your javelin class. Again, that affected how far you could fly. But at least with the ranger, you know, when you're running around, you get the double jump and you could still traverse that way. And it didn't feel like his movement was impeded any by not flying. So even if I had to get to the ground to cool the jets a little bit, I was still able to like sprint through. So movement felt amazing, and the shooting did feel fun, even if the weapons were kind of boring looking. But again, we're getting into the cons.
Yeah, the cons are going to be bigger.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah, I mean, I gotta double down on the movement. I played the Interceptor, and I discovered there's some interesting and fun movement tech you can do to, kind of get around really fast with the Interceptor. And when I discovered that, I was actually having fun just, cruising around the map as quickly as I could.
Yeah, Tim actually would be like at places twice as fast, not flying.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah.
Which seemed like fun.
And once you get a decent build together with like, a set of combos, or, I guess you like with a primer and a detonator, and like you can get into the rhythm of killing things. It is fun to just run around and kill things. Like there's not that much enemy diversity, but it's like just killing as many enemy, like a bunch of smaller enemies, working together to kill a bigger enemy. Like there is some definite, like there's enough there for the combat just purely on itself. And I think that's it.
It seems like we're all kind of hinting at the same things. Like at its core, as like an engine or a demo, the game has some good qualities. To build on that, I will say the class diversity seems pretty good. I know we all kind of played our own separate ones, but we all definitely had different experiences. Playing the Colossus myself, he's the big honker. He's fat and stuff. But his combo system is basically his combos all AoE off each other. So like Tim was saying, once I found a good combo, I would obliterate little enemies. And it felt amazing. That the sound and the effects are all really well crafted to give you a sense of accomplishment in those little mini, like, oh, I blew up 5 guys and it felt great. And that, I do think that's the strength of the game. The visuals and the particle effects and stuff are pretty amazing. That doesn't really make a good game, but it's a nice little touch.
It adds to it. Yeah.
It's
a nice little nugget.
I did think the world building was somewhat interesting. Clearly there was some mishmash as far as like where they went with it. But the initial like kind of mystery of the world's kind of interesting. The terrain and the caves and the exploration is a good amount of fun. I think the issues with that is really just the reward system. And then I don't know, after that, like, I think that's about all the good things.
It's interesting that you mentioned that you enjoyed the story. I really did not connect with the story very much.
So it's not quite the story, because the story fizzled out for me personally.
Yeah.
But I think the moment to moment world building and stuff was interesting. Like the Matthias quest line where he splits in 3.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I'm intrigued a little bit. Like, where is this gonna go? Like these Shaper relics.
Okay,
and
so
stuff.
then so those little side like the Matthias quest, like you mentioned, that was actually kind of cool. But overall, the main story kind of fills it out at the end. I'm like, I don't know what a cenotaph is. I don't even care about silencing it. I guess I just kind of have to get to the end game. Like at that point, I was just doing it to get to the end game. I didn't really care about the Heart of Rage or the cenotaph.
And it felt very
like that.
Division-y, and then it's like, here's this cool world with backstory, but we're not gonna do anything with it. Like that reminded me of Division 1, where it's like the speaker and like it's all these like terms, and you're like, yeah, but what does that mean? Especially the whole Anthem of Creation.
The Anthem of Creation, yeah. Like I don't know what the
like,
Anthem of Creation is. I know that ciphers can hear it.
Sure.
And that's cool. And then Owen's kind of a dick.
And that's and
it's just yakety sax.
I'm going straight into cons here because we might as well.
Yeah, I mean we're dancing around it. We might as well just jump in.
The actual key character developments are somewhat awful, I think, as far as just, you go from like, oh, you had friends at the beginning, you lose them, they're grumpy for like a little bit, and then they're sort of your best friends, and then like one guy betrays you,
and then the one guy who was like your homeboy for a while, and he's like jealous because your old crew's back in town.
Yeah, and then your old crew pretends to be mad at you to get you to learn your lesson.
And then he like half unbetrays you, but like he's still a dick.
Well, he's kind of nice, but then he's like, but I'm British.
The ultimate betrayal.
Also, Striders. Come on. Those were bad for me. Like, cool concept. I get it. It's like, oh, look at that big, like, that's how you get around. But it's like, you have guys flying around in jet suits.
Well, not just, like, it would have been cool if you could actually see them moving. Like, anytime they showed a Strider, It's like, oh, there's a Arcanist stuck in the Strider,
Yeah.
which is stationary
And
completely.
it's broken down.
And they're just a bunch of them all over the universe, and they don't move or do anything.
Which is funny.
But here's the inside of a Strider.
Clearly that was
Functionally, it was just a box.
Yeah, it was just a big box that I feel like wasn't the right size either. Because like when you're inside the Striders, they look way bigger.
It's like the TARDIS for those of you who do listen that are Doctor Who fans. It's always bigger on the inside.
And I get that reference, but I'm not a Doctor Who fan. But yes, or the Portal 1 first level, according to the director's voiceover cut.
Mary Poppins' bag.
Very true.
Or Hermione Granger's bag.
For the Mary Poppins fan base.
Yeah.
And the Hermione Granger fan base. Specifically.
She does have that bottomless bag thing. That's right.
D&D
She stole it from Mary Poppins.
We're hitting all the fan bases on this
Listen
episode.
up, nerds.
We're pretty well rounded.
We got bags.
We got bags.
But clearly that was like concept art that at one point was like, that's pretty dope, and they just kept it in the game for no reason because they could have just taken that concept and made it like this super dexterous, like legged kind of vehicle because it's like, oh, there's mountains and shit. And everything's vertical. Like, of course you would need that, but it's like a really stationary standstill llama thing. It's like you would never get anywhere with that. The character development's just miserable, I think.
Yeah.
I don't.
Which is
did anyone play the female?
Like Bioware, like they're built on story, character development, character interactions, and this was just really like meh.
Yeah, and I think it's funny because the game clearly tried at that.
Yeah.
More so than other looter shooters, certainly, but it just sort of fell flat because the story just didn't go anywhere. Did everyone pick the male voice for their character?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I could not stand him.
I think it was actually off-putting how generic he sounded.
It was painful.
And he was always like happy.
He was freelancer everyman. That's his actual name.
It would have been better if it was a silent protagonist.
Yeah. I almost wish I picked the female voice because maybe it's a better job, but I'm not sure. But he was rough. Anytime
Real
he
bad.
spoke, it was like jarring how like every man
this
and
is
happy he
me?
was. Like, yeah, it was just rough, the voice acting, which is funny because the voice acting for the other characters I thought was okay.
Yeah, I did enjoy some of the other. Like I enjoyed Halleck. I thought he was a pretty cool voice actor.
And it was like diverse accents and stuff. Like I was digging the voice acting, except for the main character was miserable.
Did you get to the interaction where you talk to Halleck in the bar and he's drunk clearly and he's like, "Did you ever take a whiz inside your javelin?"
Yeah, and it was just like, oh, whoa. Speaking of inside the javelin, getting inside that thing was gross. It reminded me. This may sound weird. But the pads reminded me of in Empire Strikes Back where they cut open the thing. You know when Han Solo like stuffs
where he stuffs Luke in the tauntaun?
Mark Hamill in like the goopy intestines? Like that's what it reminded me of.
So the inside of a javelin is a tauntaun.
Like goopy intestine padding.
Goopy intestinal tauntaun.
I also hated, and maybe the Colossus was the worst of it, but it looked like a human in that thing would have to have their legs bent at all times. Like the proportions did not seem okay to me. Sorry.
I mean, I'm sure they sanitize them after every use. I know that's like padding inside, and you probably sweat a good bit.
Yeah,
but I'm sure
to death, right?
I'm sure they clean them.
Or is there air conditioning in there?
There's got to be.
Like some smoke comes out when you open your helmet, so maybe there's some nice.
I mean, there's got to be something. There's got to be. I mean, you take a whiz inside your javelin, it's got to go somewhere, unless you just pee on the pads.
It just goes straight into the
cushion
padding
that you're peeing on.
Those pads used to be white. And now they're like weird orange.
They haven't yellowed over time. They've yellowed because of the urea.
What were some other major cons? I'm just going to toss out general mission design.
They were pretty generic. There wasn't really much variety in the missions and stuff.
Right.
Then that was kind of like the same problem that Destiny, first vanilla Destiny had, where the missions were kind of just like, here's a world event, defeat the thing.
Yeah.
All right, here's some stuff, and then it's like, here's a world event. Defeat these other things. Here's some stuff.
Now, do you guys think that's an issue with the genre? Because I
do, and
okay.
I think that even though it is an issue for the genre, this game was especially bad about like there's literally like 3 things you do aside from just kill enemies, and it's, like assemble the relics, like turn these stupid like
the
turnstiles with pictures on them, which
get the echoes.
Yeah, and then get the echoes. That
Get
was
the
that was
echoes,
just
yeah.
basically the 3, or sit in a circle. That's like there's not that much variety to it. And if you're gonna do that, then you better have thousands of these quests because they must take 5 seconds to come up with.
And I agree, Tim. I think looter shooters in general suffer from like you can't do that much with a first person shooter and make it that interesting. Although I do think Destiny had some interesting stuff as far as certainly in the raids where they had the kind of pathfinding labyrinth stuff, the stealth stuff. They were definitely trying different stuff out. But this one's particularly, I thought the flying was actually an issue where every mission was like, go here, fly for a bit, go there, fly for a bit. And I kind of thought that was monotonous. I know the flying feels cool, but maybe it was because I was the Colossus. Like I kind of hated that, like you would fly and then have to land and like let it cool off and then fly. And I know there was the mechanic where it's like, oh, if you hit a waterfall, like it'll help. But
yeah, there weren't very many waterfalls.
There wasn't nearly enough waterfalls.
Every now and then you'd get lucky and there's like a lake that you could dive in.
Yeah. And there was also just, I feel like enemy variety sort of built into that a little bit. I didn't expect too much more.
There's like 4 enemies.
But yeah, and there's like outcasts or something that are all just dudes with different guns. That was like a weird faction. Yeah, the missions were just not really exciting, barring a couple at the end, maybe.
Yeah, no, I definitely will call it. There were a handful towards the end where it was like, okay, this is kind of cool and kind of upbeat. Like, where you have to go to what is it, like General Tarsus, and there's like that big, the big battle, and then Halleck kind of goes ahead. He's like, "Don't worry, I'll go after you guys."
Yeah.
The one where Owen comes back and you find out that his eyes are all fucked up now. That mission was fun.
I think it's just like they just felt climactic and epic sort of in Anthem's way, which helped. But I just think there was a lack of like punch. It never really felt like to me. It just felt like, okay, it's arena fight time or I'm traveling. I do also think there's an issue with the way that the enemies sort of streamed in a few at a time was a huge issue for me. I don't know if that's because of the play style I was playing where I blow up a lot of enemies at the same time. But sometimes you'd be in a room and it would be like you'd fight one little hive guy or whatever his name was, like the little buggy guys, and you'd kill him. And then you'd have to like look around for another one. And it was like in the middle of the mayhem, like there's just like a few enemies. Like, I thought that the pacing of the missions were also kind of rough in that sense.
The stores didn't seem like they offered really anything I wanted to buy.
So
like
at all.
That's kind of itemization to me.
Yeah, but that's still like one of the things that if you're playing like a looter shooter and you have like a store front where they give you items or emotes or whatever it is that they offer you, like I'd like a little bit of variety to at least like maybe want to spend the gold that I have or whatever the in-game currency is. And I feel like Prospero store just never had anything.
Yeah, I mean, it was weird because that alone, like you'd think they'd just offer more just on the basis of like that's how they're trying to make money. But also like the other store was like crafting components. I never crafted a single thing in the game.
Yeah, same.
And I never saw a reason to. I knew you could like craft like food or something before missions, but like
it's just like a buff for one mission. I made a couple of them, but it didn't matter.
And that's like a weird. There was definitely an issue with itemization and the fact that the only time I was actually excited for items was when I started getting Masterworks, and that lost its appeal pretty quickly too. I'm sure if you get the right Masterwork, it might kind of be more exciting, but like it just seemed like you were just getting like the same guns, but this one's blue instead of green.
Yeah. It didn't feel like there was any variety really in the weapons.
And I know that the looter shooter genre like kind of has that in general, but this one it never felt like you were getting a huge upgrade until Masterworks basically.
Yeah.
Whereas like Division 2, for instance, like you would get a gun sometimes and you'd be like, oh my god, I'm crushing, like because you would get a gun that was like super powerful, but it would be a different type of gun. There'd be different types of perks. Like it wasn't just for me. It was like, oh, a battle rifle or a light machine gun was all I wanted. And I would get a grenade launcher, and I was like, well, it's not as good. Like, so I would never use it. So itemization is definitely an issue. I know at the high levels it's still sort of an issue, according to the forums and players and stuff. And I think, Tim, you probably got the high. You actually did Grandmaster 1. I know I never got to that difficulty. And I think you were telling me like it's just sort of the difficulty just scales, like as far as
that's all it is. Enemies deal more damage and they take longer to kill and they drop better stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what you'd expect. But it's nothing like you're like, oh wow, this game is exciting now. It's just like, nah, this is just I guess another tier to get over.
And I feel like that works as like in a game like Diablo, for instance, or something like that, where it's, there's this never-ending difficulty. But
it could work, but there's just nothing to do. That's the problem. Like there's 3 total strongholds, which is like the dungeons. Could you imagine if like on release World of Warcraft had 3 instances?
Yeah, that'd be
Could you
pretty
imagine
rough.
that?
The end game's really kind of miserable. I think
it is, and this is the biggest problem. I don't know if we want to just jump right into it.
Yeah, why not?
But yeah, this is the main complaint that most people had about the game early on after its release, aside from the multitude of bugs, which we'll get into. But it's that once you get to the max level and you're just trying to up your item level and improve your gear and do harder things, there's nothing to do. Basically, your options is you can do the legendary quest, which unlocks, I believe, after you finish the game. It's either that or you hit level 30. But either way, all it is
I
is
forget which one. That's also
it's just harder quest.
So
harder
if
quest.
you haven't played
they
in a
give
while,
you a random quest each day. That's just a legendary version, and you don't even really get anything special for doing it. It's just there. And we talked about this. Another thing that's hilarious about that is you cannot skip cutscenes in the legendary quest.
Yeah, God.
And all of these quests are quests you've already done, and especially in a group of 4 people, all 4 people just have to sit there and watch the cutscene.
Yeah,
and it's ridiculous. All of them have them.
There's some big things that they clearly just didn't think of that are shocking. I know the Forge was a big thing for us. That was recently patched.
Yeah.
But the fact that to enter your equipment screen, you had to load into the Forge and then like load back out of it was insane. As far as on release, that was even part of the game. Again, rush development and so on. That makes sense.
Yeah, and like a lot of the stuff that were nitpicking on, again, you could definitely see how that came about in like the hectic development cycle and the tumultuous development that this game is a product of. So you can see a lot of that shine through here.
Yeah. I mean, the strongholds were sort of interesting. I think that's like the strong point of the game. It's tough because like repeating them isn't necessarily fun.
They hit the bare minimum for being like, this is fun.
Yeah, like it felt like a baby WoW dungeon. And it's funny because World of Warcraft dungeons, like, I feel like I actually have a lot more personality than those do, to be honest.
They do.
Because like I know they had to voice act the lines and stuff, but like they're not like really consequential to the story. I mean, the last stronghold you unlock is literally the last mission in the story, so I guess that's consequential, but you already played it as a mission, so
yeah, you want to jump into the Heart of Rage again? Let's do it.
Like, yeah, and
it is corny. Like the 30th time doing the spider stronghold, just hearing like the same lines over and over again, like, oh, spiders are gross. Like, it's like, I get it.
Yeah.
Like,
yes, we know spiders are gross.
Can we just tune this out? Like, I don't want to hear this again. It's not like any sort of gravity that went with the acting involved in this line is gone.
Yeah, and it's funny because in an MMO it's different. I mean, like even just like basic, there wasn't really text chat or anything, so like there's no socializing except for like amongst friends.
Right.
We were talking.
Yeah.
The hub for socializing is just people running around. There's no reason to go there otherwise.
You can emote.
You can emote. I forgot.
Oh yeah,
I
can throw a
show
flare
off your
and
gear.
Clap.
And the gear, I'm sure you can look cool in it, but you don't actually look cool. You look cool because you buy it with gold when it's on the store. Like, you don't look cool because you got gear. Which I think
none
that's
of the equipment that upgrades your abilities in combat has any bearing on your physical appearance.
Yeah.
No, the only cosmetic change you can maybe get vinyls and like change your colors.
And that's
which, it could be nice, but it does kind of take something away from like the kind of regular RPG aspect of these games where you're
Yeah.
like, oh, this weapon looks really cool. Like I'm more inclined to want to use it.
And that's what's funny. Like even like having Destiny and Destiny 2 available again in the article, a lot of employees mentioned that they couldn't mention Destiny. Apparently managers were like, that's a non-word for this company because they didn't want to copy it or something. But like in Destiny, when you get a sweet piece of loot and it looks cool, it's like, dope.
That was like one of
the
that was one of the like the highlights of getting an like if you get an epic like set of like Greaves or something, it's like, yo, these look dope.
Yeah.
I want to wear these.
And that's missing from Anthem big time. I know the Colossus suit looks big, and like the other suits look nimble or soldiery or whatever, but like the whole itemization and reward system is a mess.
Like, and I know that in the stores they have options to buy like new helmets and but it's again itemization. It's super limited. I think they only have something like 4 armor sets or like 5. Some ridiculously low number.
Be like, oh, I have enough gold to buy this, like, so I'll just equip it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it would feel way better if you found that because you beat a hard stronghold or something like that.
And also give me more. I want more options. I don't want the 4 that you have suck.
Yeah,
give me a better one.
And again, I know we're bashing on this game, limited development, but like. At its heart, I think the issue was this game needed another year. At a minimum.
It definitely needed more time to bake.
And to be fair, in a year or year and a half development time, whatever it was, like the game's actually okay.
Actually, I mean, considering that like it's been in development for like what 5 years, but only went into production in like a year and a half
total,
ago. Like
total time was 7 years.
Like. So. I will give them that. This is an impressive piece of work they did with a limited tool set, with a very tumultuous development cycle in a year and a half.
Yeah.
If they had another year, I think this game would be more akin to the game they showed in that trailer. And if in a year from now, I definitely would be talking about this as a 2020 contender for Game of the Year. But unfortunately, as it happens, it came out in 2019 where it needed more time, and the game that I wanted it to be is not what it is, and probably not going to crack my top 10.
Yeah. Not to mention, like, if you just look on the forums and stuff, every patch that releases, it breaks the game more. There's more bugs introduced. They don't quite hit the mark. It seems like the player base and the actual developers, like, are disconnecting hard over what needs to be added or changed to the game. A lot of players are kind of calling for a complete, like, Final Fantasy Reborn,
like a Final Fantasy
kind of
14 overhaul.
A lot of players, honestly, there was a bug where they were dropping way more loot than usual, and everyone was like, "That's the best the game's ever felt. You should put that back in." But yeah, it's kind of rough when every patch comes out and it adds more bugs and breaks more things. Sorry, Tim, I cut you off before.
No, it's fine. I honestly think that this game would have been beneficial if it wasn't a looter shooter, you know? Like the biggest gripe of this game is the lack of end game content, right? If this was just a co-op like shooter with like loot elements where it's like it's not designed to be, you know, endlessly repeatable where you're just doing these missions over and over again trying to get your, you know, your javelin as powerful as possible, then it could have they could have focused more on just, you know, having like a continuous narrative with you know, a beginning, a middle, and an end, and just been like, this is the game, you know? We're not trying to be Borderlands. We're not trying to be Destiny. We're just trying to, you know, have fun flying around in this suit and trying to save the world. Like, by adhering to this looter shooter model, you have to make it be endlessly repeatable. And we've been, you know, I don't want to say spoiled, but we've just been inundated with games like this as gamers where it's you're expected to just play, you know, until forever. But you know, it's just a retail game. Like if they just spent more time on the regular experience from start to finish, I think it would have benefited from that.
It's interesting because I feel like they could have leaned into the flying a little more and had some missions or parts of missions where you are literally flying the whole time. And it's a lot more movement dodge based, while, you know, say you get a specific weapon or somehow your weapon feels like a cool like spaceship railgun or something where you're, you know, it's almost like a bullet hell or a shoot 'em up a little bit. That could have been an interesting thing because I do think Anthem at its core, the identity of Anthem is the javelin suit. And they should have leaned a little more heavily into it. Any other big cons you guys can think of?
I mean, we could talk about the elephant in the room.
Should we, Tim? Do you want to
turn it down a little bit?
Should we have a little fireside chat with Tim?
Just I feel like we've been kind of just gritting our teeth or gnashing our teeth a little bit, getting a little too excited about all the problems that we have with Anthem, and I think it would be beneficial if we could all just take a little bit of a step back, just calm down, enjoy some nice cello music, and have a little discussion. Over the course of playing Anthem, I experienced a few bugs here and there.
Just a couple.
And I thought I'd just list a few. If you guys have any more, please just feel free to chime in. Let me know if you've experienced these. First bug that I experienced was sometimes you would go to the forge and your javelin's head would be missing.
Ooh, that was one of my favorites.
Wasn't really a high impact game bug, but it took me out of it a little bit if there was any immersion. Another bug I experienced was if you alt tab during a cutscene, sometimes the subtitle would get stuck, and it would just leave that subtitle there for the entirety of the cutscene, and it could happen multiple times.
I got up to 5.
Experienced a time where it was 5 times.
5 was my record. It just sort of covered the screen.
Yeah, and it adds, I think, to the flavor of the scene when 5 minutes later they're still saying the same thing.
The text is still up, just in case you forgot.
Yeah. So that was nice. I don't know if you guys experienced this, but Anthem never saved my Windows Mixer volume settings.
Oh.
So every time I launched Anthem, it would be blaringly loud, and I would have to turn it down manually.
I did not experience that one.
Wow.
But I didn't. To be fair, I didn't actually I don't think I turned it down.
Yeah, actually, I think I had it just blasting, so I was constantly blowing out my eardrums with my headphones.
Oh, I'm sorry you guys didn't get to experience that. It really added a lot to the game for me.
I feel like next time I should pour some brandy or something for this segment.
I get a snifter over here.
Turn the lights down.
Another bug that I experienced is sometimes you'd be flying around and you'd get radio messages for nearby world events, and you'd be frantically searching for world events so you could complete the mission of the day, only to find out that there is no world event nearby, and possibly it had already been completed, but I guess HQ never got the memo on that, so they're just trying to get you to go to a place that's
sometimes empty. Your cipher just gets confused, dude.
Yeah,
it's all
that's what happened. I mean, was it Owen at this point? Maybe he was just doing it to be a dick.
It's possible. We would be in his character, and this game is very true to character. It likes to build the world around that. But the even better was if you do complete world events, sometimes they didn't count towards your credit for
I got that one.
The daily challenge,
Oh.
which, if you're trying to get your Elysian key, can be frustrating.
The last time I played Anthem, me and Tim were grinding world events to do that, and I was stuck at 3 out of 5 for like 6 events in a row, and that was the last time I played Anthem. I was like, well, I'm done with this game.
Yes, and to further that point, if you do manage to get your Elysian key, and you do manage to open your Elysian chest, which had only the greatest of riches inside of it, unfortunately, sometimes you wouldn't even get that reward that would be given to you from the chest. I've been told that restarting your game can fix this, but I didn't check.
I didn't check.
That's too much work. I'm just gonna call it quits.
I had that bug. I experienced that bug, but I wasn't about to relog to see if I got my sticker or not.
Yes. Oftentimes, I would lose the ability to interact with items or chests, and I would have to hope that somebody in my party was able to do that because I was just unable to do anything for the entirety of the mission. But that's what friends are for, right?
Teamwork.
Yeah, makes the dream work.
You do everything. I'll just watch.
Yeah.
Here's a bug that I experienced a few times, and I actually love this bug and hope that it doesn't get fixed. But sometimes you could run around during the cutscenes, and you could it was fun because I would run as far into the distance as possible, and you could see once the cutscene gets to that point, you could just see the tail end of your javelin, like the far distance, and it was funny, and I like that.
I like that one too. I experienced that one.
There were several times where I experienced randomly getting frozen or overheating in my javelin, just out of nowhere. And sometimes I would be frozen and running around with my model still being frozen. I don't really understand whether that was intentional.
That's an interesting one.
So I don't know if it's fair to call that a bug with this game's track record, but I'm gonna do it. Often I would get randomly teleported. The Anthem has a really nice system where if you're not within the mission area when it gets started in 10 seconds, it'll just yank you forward.
Oh, I hate that rubber banding was always one of the things I hated the most.
Yeah, makes you feel great when there's some asshole interceptor just running in front of you, like just getting to all the mission objectives, like leaving you in the dust. I'm sure.
I started giving up when you discovered that tech, Tim. I was like, I'll just.
But yeah, sometimes even though I was in the mission area, I would get randomly teleported, which is funny when you're fighting a boss and it tells you to get to the mission area to fight the boss, and then it brings you to a loading screen that takes you out of the boss area. So you have to run back in yourself, but that's cool. And as much as I'd like to continue on all day, there are more bugs on this list.
There's so many more.
And I'm not going to even get to them, so I'll say my favorite bug in Anthem is that every single time I closed it, it would not close, and I would have to manually go into the task manager to close it, which is, I think, the greatest bug in any game. It's not the first game I've experienced this bug in, but when this happens in a game that you're playing a well-made game.
It's good. I think
the bug that keeps on giving.
Counter-Strike
won't even let you quit it.
It's like, no, you're staying here and you're playing this game.
Please relog to get your sticker.
It's like, for the love of God, you got your key. Just take the sticker here.
I wanted to toss 2 on the end of that, if you don't mind.
Go for it.
Please be my guest.
I think you guys experienced this maybe with me one time, but there was the one stronghold where the scorpions are attacking you on the platform, and you have to stay in the platform the whole time.
Yeah.
Sometimes the scorpions just wouldn't spawn in, so you just have to wait on the platform for 4 minutes.
You're just waiting there.
Which I always enjoyed because I was like, oh, I'll go get a sip of water or something.
That did happen to me a couple times.
Yeah, it was always enjoyable. It seemed weird because it literally everything would break, but then it would just be like, okay, you're good.
Actually, I had a similar bug, and now that you said that, I just reminded me when I was fighting the monitor, the second phase of the monitor fight. He just never spawned in the arena that I'm supposed to fight him in. So I was just kind of standing there, twiddling my thumbs, waiting, and I'm like, so when are we doing this? What's going on? And I'm just sitting there, no monitor. So I had to restart the battle. After 40 minutes, I'm like, fuck.
Dude, you should have farmed harder. You should have spent your gold better.
I needed to spend my gold. I didn't get the keys.
And the last one, this was particularly annoying. It only happened to me once, but one time I was playing with you guys, and I loaded into the mission, and just all my armor and weapons had just been randomly assigned from my inventory, which made me literally useless. And I had a really weird setup, no combos.
Actually, I do remember that. You're like, wait, no, this isn't the weapon I had.
I was using a grenade launcher, and good game design for all you developers out there. Make it so that you can't change your equipment unless you're out of the missions. So that's really dumb, by the way, Anthem. But yeah, bit of a buggy game, I would say, which surprisingly isn't its worst part. I have an idea to wrap up. Thank you, Tim, for your fireside chat. We should make that a thing. I'm going to edit in crackling fire sound effects in the background, maybe. So to wrap up, and we could do our funny, like whatever you review Anthem, which my review is going to be randomly assigned numbers out of 10 that you can't change while you're in the mission. But
I like that one.
try to quickly, like, if you could fix one somewhat, not like just fix the whole game, but fix something about Anthem that could maybe get you to replay it in the future, what would it be? My personal one, I think they should lean in on the loot system and make it like heavily D2, D3 inspired, make the weapons really change your build, make it all sorts of like, you could get weapon sets and really make it about the items and farming them with like good loot rates and so on and so forth. I think if they fixed the itemization a bit and made it truly interesting to get items, it would help the game as far as being rewarding throughout. I thought that was missing through the whole game, where it was just, I never really felt happy getting an item. I was just like, this one says 22 instead of 18. Yeah. Like, so if they kind of lean into the Diablo 2 or 3 approach, I think that would help significantly. Berto, what is your rating and what do you think they could do to fix the game?
My rating is a number that hasn't yet spawned, and you kind of just have to sit there and wait for a while, and then at some point maybe the review score will pop.
I'm gonna hold you to that. Listeners, expect a rating in the future.
You just sit there, wait for it, and then wait some more, and then restart, and then do it all over again. So that's my review for Anthem. I mean, one thing that I would change is, in addition to the loot drop, is also like that's. I mean, I'm just going to build on top of that because obviously that's one of the things I would want to change. Make the world events and make like the end game content matter. There was that like at the end of the story, they're like, "Oh, check this out. What do you think this is?" Like sort of setting up, I guess, what the next big story drop's going to be. And my guess it's probably not going to be interesting to the missions surrounding that are probably not going to be fun. Make it matter. Make me want to play. Make me want to do these missions in relation to whatever the next story drop's going to be.
They could probably, honestly, like if they just involved Fort Tarsus a little more, that could probably help. Because like it always just felt like you were in Fort Tarsus and nothing mattered, and then outside the walls it changed. Tim, what is your review, and try to change them?
I would give it 16 permutations of twisting block puzzles. There's no out of. That's just the maximum number of permutations.
All right, fair.
To solve any of the puzzles.
Got it.
And honestly, this game, if there was about 20 times the amount of content as there was, just things to do, just missions, strongholds, items, just the amount of substance inside of the game, then the backlash would be so minimal. Even leaving the bugs, leaving the crappy loot system, people would be complaining about it, but they'd at least be playing the game.
Yeah, fair point.
You could at least do something and complain about it.
Make a bunch of shit, and it's that's obviously time consuming. It's going to be ages before, if they continue to work on this game, for whatever is the case. But they've got the shell of something that could work, even here already. It's just not enough content. I've literally done everything in this game that you can do aside from Grandmaster 2 and Grandmaster 3, which are just rehashes.
Yeah. Which was funny because a good probably third of the time we were playing was us just like redoing content so that we could catch up to each other. Because we were kind of helping each other out the whole way through. So Bioware, if you're listening, don't listen to us probably, but trying to fix it maybe. At least Berto got it for free.
That's right. I forgot about that.
Tim.
All right,
Tim
that's a positive.
Sorry, Tim.
That's on my bug list. Micro Center is bugged.
So that is probably going to be wrapping up our episode about Anthem. Get at us if you guys actually like it and want to disagree with us. Get at us if you want to try to play it, because you shouldn't yet. But yeah, just get at us. What do you think? We do have another game club in the works. I think we said 2 weeks from now we want to just rip it for the next episode. 2 weeks from Tuesday, which is going to be today for you folk out there, we're going to be doing Ori and the Blind Forest. Oldie but goodie. I think it's a Metroidvania. Is it a Metroidvania or is it more a 2D side scroller?
think it's a Metroidvania.
A little bit of both. Who knows?
Yeah.
Gorgeous artwork. Kind of like a little indie game. I know there's a sequel coming out. I believe it's available on Xbox and PC. If you have played that, that's awesome. If you haven't yet, join us. We'll be talking about it next week for Game Club number 4 or 5 or whatever it is. And yeah, please let us know what your thoughts on Anthem are. So let's wrap it up. If you want to check us out, we have splitscreencynics.com. Our Instagram is splitscreencynics, drop the E's. So it's just Split Screen Cynics. I'm trying to post more stuff on there. We also got updates on game clubs and stuff like that on there if you want to get at us. We are now on YouTube. I'm slowly putting out the podcast on YouTube, so you can listen to us there. Hopefully I'll start putting some game reviews up there as well. I keep saying that every episode and I don't do it, so don't hold me to it. Berto, where can people... Oh, also twitch.tv/GarrettGetsInto if you want to see me lose at Sekiro and stuff. Berto, where can people find you at?
You can find me at Albie, the one and only, pretty much on all social media. That's my sort of my universal tag across all social media: Instagram, Twitter, MySpace, Zynga.
Whoa.
Yeah. I don't think it's. I don't remember my Zynga. I think I remember my MySpace password. I'm not sure. Tom's my friend. Also. Check us out on Twitter at Split Screen Cynics. Also, again, drop the E, so Split Screen Cynics on Twitter. And also, we do also have a Twitch channel, Split Screen Cynics. There we do have the E's. I know it's really confusing, but stay with us. Twitch.tv/Split Screen Cynics. I'm working on finalizing maybe like a weekly stream schedule. I'm thinking either Wednesday or Thursday for doing a weekly stream on behalf of Split Screen Cynics. So keep a lookout on the Twitter account for those updates. And that's all the updates and plugging that I have.
Tim, you want to play us out?
Sure. You can reach me at it's my Anthem themed live journal is livejournal.com/javelinfetish69. Please, I've got tons of cool quizzes and stuff. Just check it out. There's good stuff.
So yeah, go check out Tim's what is that, live journal?
Live journal.
Oh man, that one took me by surprise. Thank you so much for listening. If you're still listening, again, check out Ori and the Blind Forest for the next episode, and keep on gaming. Peace.
Bye.
Stronger together.
I should hit stop.